How's it going, Chargers fans? Welcome into the Guilty as Charged podcast. A couple of you have asked me, hey, who are the Chargers taking at 17? And I certainly have some ideas, but I wanted to look at different resources around the internet to figure out, who is the betting favorite, who is most likely going to be taken by the Chargers, or at least who's in that range of most likely to be available, most likely to be taken. So we're going to look at three different tools from three different websites or whatever's. One of them is from ESPN and their draft analytics. Seth Walder and Brian Burke put it together. So we're going to look at that first. Then we're going to look at NFL Mock Draft Database, which compiles all the mock drafts from around the internets to figure out, who's the favorite, or who's the most likely pick at each spot, who's ranked a certain way and whatnot. And then we're just going to go to Vegas. We're going to look exactly who Vegas thinks the Chargers, or at least who is in that range for the Chargers to be taken at 17. Who's the betting favorite, the over-unders and whatnot. So let's get into it. I'm actually going to disappear and let's get into it. So the first one is from ESPN Analytics. Like I said, it's from Brian Burke. Seth Walder from ESPN first shared it that I saw, but Brian Burke is the one he said is responsible for this. It's fantastic. You can go through and look at player by player if you want. We're not going to look at it in this way because I think that would take too long, but you can get an idea of, hey, where's Jordan Davis going to go? Where's his highest odds of being taken? What are his highest chances of being available? Or what picks is he most likely going to be available? It's a really, really cool tool. Again, the link is up here. I will also put it in the description. Definitely check it out so you can play around with that tool. It's really, really cool to use. But what I obviously want to get into is the bigger look at it. So we're going to break it up into two parts. One is who's most likely going to be available at 17, and then who's most likely going to be selected at 17. So I've broken up this first graph, which is who's most likely going to be available at 17. I've broken up into chunks. So less than 20% chance, a less than 50% chance, less than 80% chance, and then anything above 80% is over here. So, from most to least, I'll just go through the first 10, right? Devontae Wyatt is the most likely to be available at 17. Then Desmond Ridder, then Nakobe Dean, Treylon Burks, Dax Hill, George Karlaftis. So those six all have a greater than 80% chance of being available at 17. Whether they're the pick or not is a whole different story. I'll give you four more. This is between 80% and 50%. That's Devin Lloyd, then Chris Olave, then Trevor Penning, then Jameson Williams. So that's your top 10 for most likely to be available. If you're listening, I would prefer you probably just go watch on YouTube so you can see the graphs, but thanks for listening anyway. If you're watching, hopefully you can see this. So those are your favorites to be available at 17 with Devontae Wyatt, Desmond Ridder, Nakobe Dean, your top three, and then Treylon Burks, Dax Hill, George Karlaftis, your next three. Those are your all over 80% likely to be available at 17 based on whatever their model was. I apologize for not knowing how they did it, but here's what they gave us. Very different, not very different, but different from who's likely going to be selected at 17, though. The number one player most likely to be selected based on ESPN's model is Trevor Penning. And I'll go ahead and give you your top 10. So the three, it kind of goes in little like chunks or waves, I guess. The three most likely all have a, now it's not very high, but they are all over 9%, actually over 10% likely to be selected at 17. And that top three is Trevor Penning, Jordan Davis, and Jameson Williams. And we'll get into looking at the availability versus selection probability. But those three are most likely to be taken at 17. Trevor Penning, Jordan Davis, Jameson Williams. Basically, if they're there on the board, ESPN thinks that those three players are most likely to be selected at 17. I'm assuming availability has some weight in there as well, but I don't know to be sure. Then the next chunk, the next three, George Karlaftis, then Chris Olave, Devin Lloyd. Those guys are like 8% to 7% chance of being taken. So that's your next three. Again, we'll get into that in a bit. And then finally, your last four to round out your top 10, Trent McDuffie, Treylon Burks. Who is that? I can't see with this thing in the way. Treylon Burks, Charles Cross, and Devontae Wyatt. So those guys are your next most likely to be taken at 17. So again, top 10, your big three are Trevor Penning, Jordan Davis, Jameson Williams, then George Karlaftis, Chris Olave, Devin Lloyd, and then a final four of Trent McDuffie, Treylon Burks, Charles Cross, and Devontae Wyatt. So how does that look when you're looking at the availability versus the actual percent chance they'll be taken at 17, right? Availability at 17 is much different than selection at 17. I'm sure Calvin Austin is a 100% chance of being available at 17. But obviously, he's not a betting favorite by any means to be selected there. So your top three, I have this. If you're watching, I have the top three up here. I have them ranked by chance taken with chance available in the middle. So the top three to have the highest selection or percent chance of being taken at 17 are Trevor Penning, Jordan Davis, and Jameson Williams. But those three guys aren't in the top three of most likely to be available at 17, right? Penning is the most likely to be taken, but he's only the fifth best percent chance of being there, right? Jordan Davis, second best chance of being taken, but and that's the seventh of the 8 that I have here. So I have sorry, if you're listening, I have 8 players here, and I have them sort of ranked. And yeah, Jordan Davis, even though he's the second best chance of being taken, he's only at the 7th best odds of actually being there. So I want to look at some players that have a good chance of being there and a good chance of being taken. So obviously, Trevor Penning, most likely to be taken. He has the fifth best chance of being there of this group. That's obviously a name to keep an eye on, and we'll definitely talk about him in a bit. I think George Karlaftis picking up steam is very, very interesting. I don't know if that's the right call, though. I understand why he, as an edge player, would have a good chance of being taken, and why, based on the other edge players, why he'd have a good chance of being available there. But does it really fit the scheme? I don't quite know. But it is worth mentioning that he's the second best odds of being there, and he's still top 4 of these 8 in percent chance of being taken. Again, he's 4th overall, I believe, on the graph as well. So that's a name to keep an eye on. And then I also want to talk about Chris Olave, who's the 5th best odds of being taken and the 4th best chance of being there. I think that matches up really, really well, right? Top 5 chance of being taken, top 4 odds of being available, 73% chance of being available. So I think that's definitely one to keep an eye on. So Trevor Penning, George Karlaftis, which again, I don't agree with, but the numbers are saying that. And then Chris Olave, Trevor Penning, Chris Olave. Those two seem to be very, very, those are the two that I would keep an eye on for sure. Now, I do want to go to Mock Draft Database next, and we'll start narrowing it down from here. Again, Mock Draft Database takes all the big boards and all the mock drafts from around the internet, from hopefully what I assume are reputable sources. Your Daniel Jeremiah's to your, I don't know, Dane Bruglers and all that sort of stuff. So the consensus mock draft, the consensus pick in terms of mock draft popularity, the most likely pick, or at least the most popular pick for the Chargers at 17, based on the hundreds of draft boards, or excuse me, mock drafts that they've assembled, is Trevor Penning at 17. And it's a pretty significant one. I don't know how the rest of the mock drafts look, but Jordan Davis, 21% chance of being selected by the Ravens. But the other guys around Trevor Penning, Devin Lloyd, 12% to the Eagles, Chris Olave, 13% popularity to the Saints, Trent McDuffie, 11% popularity to the Eagles again, and then the Saints picking again, 19% chance of going, or mock draft popularity, to the Saints. Trevor Penning's at 26%. Again, the guy before him, Chris Olave, 13% popularity. McDuffie after him, 11% popularity. Trevor Penning, 26%, which is the most in this range that I have listed here. I'm pretty sure, other than maybe some of the top picks, it's got to be one of the highest percent, most popular picks for the Chargers at 17. So we're definitely living in a Trevor Penning is the betting favorite world right now. And it stays that way. Even if you look at big boards, regardless of what you think of Trevor Penning, there's a lot of support for him right about in this range. That, this is just a consensus big board. Like, I know you might not have him as a top 20, 25, 30, whatever player. Maybe you have as a top 10 player. I don't know. But the consensus big boards around the entire league, from the most reputable guys to the Joe Schmoes, hopefully they don't have too many of the Joe Schmoes, Trevor Penning is ranked 18th on that big board, and his peak is 16. Like, this is almost, and his projection is 17. So he's ranked 18th. His peak, consensus big board, on the consensus big board, is 16, and his projection is 17. And he's right where, like, it is almost a perfect match in terms of big board and value. Again, it's debatable, but based on all of the internet, not just one person, it really does seem like it's the best match. Again, right before him is Chris Olave. His projection is 16. He's ranked 17th, but his peak is 7. Like, he can go as high as 7, but or someone has him as high as 7, but he's ranked overall from all the big boards 17th. After him, George Karlaftis, someone has him at 6th overall on their boards, right? But in the overall boards and across all the boards, he's ranked 19th, projected to go 23rd. Trevor Penning, ranked 18th across all big boards combined. His peak is 16, and he's projected to go 17. He's right there. And again, if you don't want Trevor Penning at 17, I understand. I am for it, but I'm not exactly jumping out of my seat like I was for Rashawn Slater by any means. But regardless of what you think or what I think, a lot of people really do think that this is a good spot and good value, and that he would be worth the pick here at 17. So again, I'm not saying I agree with it, but I just got to say that. Now, I did go to another part of the mock draft database site, and they had Jordan Davis. I'll read you what it says. It says with pick 17 in the 22 NFL draft, our consensus has determined that the most likely selection for the Los Angeles Chargers will be Jordan Davis. So I don't know what I just looked at. Then now I'm sneaking over to this part of the site. It has Jordan Davis, but I'm just sharing that so in case you see it and say, hey, what is this? I just wanted to bring it up. So Jordan Davis is still the favorite, then Trevor Penning, then Jameson Williams, and then just other is after that. So Jordan Davis by quite a bit, then Trevor Penning, then Jameson Williams. Whatever. You can look at the site and figure out why it's different, but whatever. Maybe they're just trying to make a pick, or maybe they did a sort of simulated mock draft and Jordan and somebody went earlier. I don't know. um, Last one here though. I did want to talk about Trevor Penning and narrow it down just a bit before we go to Vegas. Right now, if you look at again, this is from the consensus big board. These are just the offensive tackles. If you look at where these guys are ranked, the top 3 guys all being in the top 8, totally get it. Evan Neal is 3rd, Ikem Ekwonu 4th on the consensus big board, Charles Cross 8th. Trevor Penning is 18th. He is definitely the OT4 at best, I would say. He's definitely the OT4, but he is at least in a range that is very close to what the Chargers are going to pick. After that, you do run the risk of guys that are perceived to be reaches. Whether they work out or not, I don't know. But if you looked at Arjun's video, he talked about how a reach is often a reach, but a steal is rarely a steal. So if you're looking at this, and if the Chargers select some of the next guys, so the next 2 guys on the consensus big board, Trevor Penning's 18th. The next 2 guys are Bernard Raymond at 40 and Tyler Smith at 43. That would be considered a reach based on the consensus big boards. And even in my opinion, that would be considered a reach for Bernard Raymond or Tyler Smith. I haven't watched Tyler Smith, but based on my conversations with other people, definitely seems a reach. And Bernard Raymond, 25 years old, and ranked 40 on these big boards, that's a reach to me. Trevor Penning could also be considered a reach to you, by me, but on the consensus big boards, he's not as much. So if the Chargers did want to take another tackle here, it would be considered more of a reach than Trevor Penning. Now they could trade back, but even then, how far could you trade back to still not have the other 2 guys be considered a reach? Falele he's 50. So I'm looking at it on the different screen. He's 57th. Nicholas Petit Freer, however you say his name, 63rd. If and it's a big if the Chargers wanted to take a tackle, they would have to take Penning at 17. And honestly, based on where he's going and the popularity of him across so many big boards, I don't even know if they can trade back and still get him. I really think you have to take him here. You run the risk of trading back, and if you have to take a tackle and Penning is gone, but you're at pick 24, and by golly, you need a tackle. If you pick at 24 and you take Bernard Raymond, he's the 40th prospect on these big boards. So it is definitely more of a reach to trade back. Now, unless the Chargers are trading back to the 30s, which is possible, but I don't know if I'd like them to do that. But it would be more of a reach to take Bernard Raymond at like 25 or 24 than it would be to take Trevor Penning at 17, based on these consensus big boards. All right, so the last obvious one we got to get to, especially because the draft is in Vegas, we got to go to Vegas odds. The odds to be the first offensive lineman selected in the NFL draft. No surprise, Trevor Penning has the 4th best odds to be the first offensive lineman taken. So Ekwonu first, then Neal, then Cross, then Penning. This is offensive lineman, not tackle. I'm surprised that Linderbaum is fifth, and I'm surprised that Zion Johnson is sixth here, to be completely honest. But I guess if you're looking at, some guys are tackles, more valuable, then you have your interior offensive linemen who usually do go later. But I think people seem to like Zion Johnson a lot more than Trevor Penning, and even Tyler Linderbaum more than Trevor Penning. So, it is what it is. Last one, last slide. Thanks for hanging in there. The over unders. And I just want to you can look at to the left here if you're watching. That's the entire over under, or at least for a big chunk of it from like 1 to 25 or whatever that is. But I wanted to pull out the guys that are right around where the Chargers are going to pick at 17. So you have Jordan Davis. So the draft position, there's odds over under, yada, yada. But the draft position over under they've given for each of these players is as follows: Jordan Davis, 13.5. Jameson Williams. So it seems like Jordan Davis, Vegas does not think he's going to be there for the Chargers. So there's that. Jameson Williams. So this is really gets really interesting. You have three guys at 16.5 and two guys at 17.5. The three guys at 16.5, Jameson Williams, Trevor Penning, George Karlaftis. The two guys with 17.5, Trent McDuffie, Chris Olave. So how would you guys bet? Don't go listening to my video and then go bet your entire income on any of this. How would you guys bet though? To me, you have Trevor Penning, right? Minus 125 on the over odds, minus 105 on the under odds. I think Trevor Penning is your most likely to be correct. How you bet the over under, I don't know. Alex is the degenerate gambler of the group. So just go look at it and let me know who you think is the most likely player there. So I can't say I'm the most thrilled that Trevor Penning is basically shaping up to be the pick at 17, but I'm not surprised. Trevor Penning is the guy that I think is going to be the pick at 17. To me, Tom Telesco, I know Alex kind of disagrees with me, but I think Tom Telesco has always been very predictable. Not necessarily the individual player, but the position group, right? We all knew offensive line in 2013. They went with DJ Fluker. We all knew corner, or at least a lot of people were mocking corner, Darquez Denard, Bradley Roby, Jason Verrett to the Chargers, went with Jason Verrett. Ryan Matthews leaves. A lot of people were mocking Todd Gurley or Melvin Gordon to the Chargers. They got Gordon. 2016, Bosa was not a popular pick, but they were trying to go offensive line, defensive line, Jalen Ramsey. Like Jalen Ramsey was there too. And so that was, people mocking Jalen Ramsey to the Chargers, I totally understand. A lot of people went Larry Tunsil, or no. Was that the bong draft? I forget. But yeah, Joey Bosa, Larry Tunsil. Oh gosh, who's the tackle for the Ravens? Those guys. And then 2017, I remember right before the draft or the Chargers selected, I think it was Ian Rappaport's on TV going, yeah, I think Mike Williams is the pick here. And he was. 2018 was just a fluke because of Derwin James. 2019, we knew they either had to protect Phillip Rivers or get after the quarterback. Unfortunately, I put a bolt beat tweet out that said, all these players I wanted, ... and Jerry Tillery. And then they ended up taking Jerry Tillery, but I kind of knew ahead of time that he was one of their options. 2020 quarterback, pretty obvious. Trading up in the first round for Murray was definitely not an obvious thing. And then 2021, everyone thought it'd be a tackle. I just didn't think it'd be the tackle that they usually don't take in terms of body type, but we all kind of figured it was Christian Darrisaw, and ended up being Rashawn Slater. So I think it's pretty predictable this year as well. I think it's going to be an offensive tackle. They have no offensive tackle. Like, they don't have one. I know someone has said to me before, you can never have too many wide receivers, Tyler. Well, you can have too few right tackles. Okay. And the Chargers don't have one. They only have one good tackle. He's a fantastic tackle, right? But he's playing left tackle and he ain't moving. Matt Filer is not moving. I don't think he's going to be moving. I doubt he's moving. So to me, it does come down to Trevor Penning. Yay. So what do you guys think of that? Let me know in the comment section below. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Draft season is almost here, guys. Can't wait. See you then.